Everybody talks about love, we sing about it, we write about it, we chase it, but what is it really? Is it just some kind of magic, or is there actually a science behind why we fall for the people we do? Well, today we're going to break down the psychology of love, and trust me, some of what we're about to find is going to surprise you. So let's start with that big question. Is love this totally unknowable mystical force? Or can we actually, study it? Can we figure out what makes it tick? It turns out social psychologists have been looking into this for a long time, and they have some incredible answers that might just change how you think about relationships forever. All right, first up, let's think about love like a recipe. This idea comes from a psychologist named Robert Sternberg. He argued that love isn't just one thing. Nope. He said it's made up of 3 core ingredients. And when you get that mix just right, that's when you hit what he calls consummate love. So, ingredient number 1, intimacy. And we're not just talking physical here. This is all about that feeling of closeness, that deep connection you have with someone. It's about sharing the parts of yourself that you don't share with anyone else. That's the real heart of intimacy. Okay, ingredient number 2, passion. This is the heat. This is the fire. It's that I can't stop thinking about you feeling. It's the engine that drives romance, physical attraction, the whole shebang. Basically, it's the spark. And our final ingredient for this recipe is commitment. Now, this one is different. Sternberg saw this as a very conscious choice. It's the decision to say, hey, we're in this, and then the active, deliberate work to keep it going, even when it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Okay, so we've got our 3 ingredients: intimacy, passion, and commitment. But here's where it gets really interesting. What happens when you're missing one, or when you only have one? Well, combining these in different ways gives us totally different kinds of relationships. Let's take a look at what we're calling the love box score. This chart really breaks it all down. Take a look. If you just have intimacy, that gives you liking. Think of a really great friendship. Just have passion? Well, that's infatuation, your classic school crush. And if you only have commitment, you get what's called empty love, which sadly can happen in relationships that have fizzled out. But when you start combining them, things get more complex. Intimacy plus passion, that's romantic love. Intimacy plus commitment, companionate love, like that deep bond you might have with family or a lifelong best friend. And the grand prize, according to Sternberg, is right at the bottom, consummate love, which has all 3. So that's a pretty cool way to map out the different types of love that could exist. But let's rewind a bit. What causes that initial spark in the first place? What pulls us toward one person and not another? Well, social psychology tells us it often boils down to 3 surprisingly simple rules. They call them the big 3. First, there's proximity. Honestly, it's pretty simple. We tend to fall for people who are physically around us. The person in the next cubicle, not someone halfway across the world. Then there's similarity. We are just drawn to people who are like us, who share our attitudes and our interests. And finally, familiarity. We're just more likely to be attracted to someone we see all the time than to a total stranger. And this right here is a huge mythbuster. I mean, how many times have you heard that opposites attract? Well, forget it. The research overwhelmingly shows that's just not true. Similarity is what brings people together. We like people who get us, who are like us. Okay, so proximity and similarity. Those kind of make sense, right? They're the basics. But now let's get into the really weird and fascinating side of attraction. These are the subtle, counterintuitive things that can make all the difference. And we're going to start with something called the pratfall effect. I want you to imagine something. You're part of a study, and you're listening to 2 audio recordings of people trying out for a quiz show. All you have to do is listen to them and then rate how attractive you think they are. Easy enough, right? So on the first tape, you hear this nearly perfect person. They absolutely crushed the quiz, getting 92% right. They were in the Honor Society, editor of the yearbook, you name it. On the second tape, you hear someone, well, a lot more mediocre. They only get 30% of the questions right and have a pretty average background. Now, at first, people found this super competent person more attractive. No big shock there. But then the researchers threw in a twist. For some participants, at the end of the interview, they heard the person go, "Oh no, I've spilled coffee all over my new suit." And this is where the results got wild. When the super competent person made that little blunder, their attractiveness rating actually went up. The mistake made them seem more human, more relatable. But when the mediocre person did the exact same thing, their rating went down. The blunder just kind of confirmed that they didn't have it all together. All right. Next up, we have something called the gain-loss effect. This is fascinating. It turns out that as humans, we are way more sensitive to change than to things just staying the same. So think about it. We are often most attracted to the person who maybe wasn't so sure about us at first, but then grew to really like us. That gain in their affection feels amazing. And the flip side is true too. The person who can hurt you the most isn't someone who always disliked you. It's the partners whose love and affection starts to fade away. And now, for maybe the most mind-bending idea of them all, we're going to talk about how your own body, your heart rate, your sweaty palms, can actually trick you into thinking you're in love, when what you're really feeling is something else entirely. Okay, so let me paint you a picture of a classic experiment. Out in British Columbia, there are 2 bridges over a river. One of them is terrifying, a high, rickety rope bridge that sways in the wind hundreds of feet up. The other one is a low, solid, totally safe bridge. Now, an attractive researcher stood at the end of each bridge and stopped men right after they had crossed. She had them do a quick survey, and then she gave them her phone number saying, "Hey, call me if you have any questions." So here's the million-dollar question. Which group of guys was more likely to actually call her for a date? The ones from the safe bridge or the ones who just crossed the scary one? You guessed it. The results were crystal clear. The men who had just wobbled their way across that scary bridge were way, way more likely to call her. But why? Well, think about it. Their hearts were pounding, they were breathing hard, their palms were sweaty from the fear and adrenaline. But their brains looked for an explanation, saw an attractive person, and thought, wow, I must really be attracted to her. This has a name, and it's called misattribution of arousal. It's when your body is all fired up for one reason. Maybe it's fear from a scary movie, the rush from a good workout, or even just too much coffee. But your brain mislabels that feeling. It looks around for the most obvious cause and lands on the person you're with, concluding, I must be falling in love. And while this whole thing can seem like a quirky, psychological fun fact, it actually has a really dark side. This same effect is one of the theories for why people can get stuck in toxic or abusive relationships. They mistake the intense, chaotic arousal that comes from big fights, from anger and from fear, as a sign of intense, passionate love. They think, wow, they must really love me to get this worked up. So from a simple 3-ingredient recipe to the weird ways our own bodies can fool our minds, the science of love is, well, it's complicated, and it's absolutely fascinating. Knowing this stuff doesn't take away the magic, not at all, but it does give us a whole new way to look at it. Which really just leaves one final question for you. Now that you know the science, what does love look like to you?